Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Prep for Wave Week. We are on day 5. Today is expansion day. So, what are those things that you can be doing for your travel business that can really break out of the norm? We've kind of talked a lot about the different basics, your foundations, your operations, marketing, and sales. But what are some out of the box ideas, and what are some specifically with this presentation? Things that you should know that a lot of people do not talk about, just I feel like in general business. So without further ado, please welcome Sarah Young. She is a virtual CFO. She has a podcast. She has a tax agency. She is just brilliant. Her podcast Profit and Prosper. I'm gonna tongue tie myself. If you're not already listening to it, make sure that you do, because she brings like bite-sized chunks every single week through her podcast. But hi, Sarah. Welcome to Prep for Wave Week.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to start this off because, like I had mentioned to you, and kind of what we started off with, is that this education, this like knowledge, and people who do the work that you do really isn't broadly out there. And so, can you give us a little bit of your background and what exactly it is that you do with clients?
Yeah, well, I do a lot. I'll try to keep it short. I am an accountant by trade. I have a CPA license. I started Young & Co., which is the virtual CFO and accounting and tax firm, almost 5 years ago. And that's my, number one business baby. We've got a team of 10 there now, which is crazy to think about.
Yay.
So that's just grown really quickly. So through there, we do CFO services, tax and accounting. What that means is we work with clients to help them understand their financials, to get clean financials, to do forecasting and planning and talk about big picture strategy and advisory around their business and their tax situation. It's my goal one day to add personal financial planning to that, to like really bring it full circle. But that's 2024. I also, on the personal side, I have a coaching and mentoring and like teaching business where I go out and I just teach people about money stuff, specifically for women, like all the things we need to know about how to make more money in your business, how to save more, how to invest, like how to ultimately reach financial independence.
Yes, which is crucially important, especially so before we got on, I know all my travel business owners know, but we get into the business of travel because we love travel. But we don't think about the business side of things, what running and operating a business really is. And so there are a lot of people who end up essentially being a broke travel business owner because they haven't planned for things important like profit. They just pretty much wanted to help clients, serve clients, and they haven't like thought strategically. And many are frustrated and are at a point like, I either have to continue or I'm going to have to stop because this is costing more money. So when people are at this, or like even like for people who might be newbies to any sort of business, what's some guidance that you have around like focusing on profit or shifting to profit and building wealth with your business?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say. I would say the first question I always ask people, especially women, is why did you really start the business? And I know you said because we love travel, but there were more reasons, right?
Exactly.
Because if you love travel, you can go work for somebody else. So why did you really start the business? And a lot of times it comes down to time freedom, financial freedom, and having an impact, being able to serve people, right? Usually I would say it boils down to those things. And so when we talk about financial freedom as one of the aspects, like what does that mean? And really get specific. And a lot of women will like not know the answer to that question, right? Especially women business owners who are also married, because if your spouse has an income or if you have a partner who has a steady income, then you can feel like your money is just play money. But Rita knows because she listens to my podcast, but I feel very, very strongly. I have a background. One of my stories is 10 years ago. I was 20. How old was I? 26, just getting divorced from an abusive relationship, $55,000 in debt. I very, very strongly believe that women need financial independence separate from their partners. So I won't get up on that soapbox because I could stay there for a while. But I think it's expansion day, right? Like what if, are you afraid to say your goals out loud? Because I think sometimes I ask the question
Mm-hmm.
and people are like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I think you really do know what you want in a lot of cases. And you're just sometimes afraid to say it out loud because it's a really big, scary goal. And you're like, who am I to do this? Or maybe I will never reach it. Then I'll be really
Yeah.
embarrassed. So many reasons. So I would start there because getting very clear on that, I think helps you shift from treating your business like play money, like a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
into a real business. And that, changes the way that you show up. It changes the way that you make sales. It can help you hire a team faster. It can help you scale your business faster and ultimately put more money in your pocket if you have a real purpose.
Oh, I love when you use that word purpose. There's an activity that I like to do with people that are in the business that's called like the onion layer activity, where like I'll dig in deeper. Okay, yes, but why? Okay, but why? Okay, but why? And then it's really like I feel when you are having that almost like gut feeling of something, that's when you really hit like what exactly is your why, or you're having some sort of visceral reaction. I know for me, like I'm an emotional person. So like tears and things will cry up and be like, oh, there it is. That's why I want to be doing all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think starting there in terms of like, what are you doing this for? Because I think that shifts the way that you show up. And like, I think if your goal doesn't scare you a little bit, then, I would question if you really want to have a business because honestly, I'm all about 5 years into it and it still scares me like almost every single day. So,
I'm here like you're saying things and I'm like, say it louder, Sarah, say
yeah.
it louder. So for those who are either newbies or kind of they've reached a point where they've either plateaued or they've gotten stuck, what are some ways that they can get on the bandwagon to start really thinking strategically about their business and being like, okay, we have to generate money, we have to generate cash flow, there has to be a profit in this business. Where are the areas in their business that they need to look at that needs like the little tweaks up, down, or all around?
Yeah, I think it depends on the size. So if it's somebody who is by themselves, even if you have maybe a VA or some very like part-time, like contractor basis help, I would still say like you need to really think about whether you have a business or not. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I tell people in that way is if you want to have a business, your business needs to be able to run without you being there every single day. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times what that means is hiring team support, having marketing systems that bring leads in consistently, having client service systems that care for your clients so you don't have to do all the day to day. And I think until you get those pieces in place, then I don't mean to be mean, but I don't really think it's a business. You're basically you're self-employed, right? Which is not the
Right.
same as having a business. So starting there with if you really want to have a business, then think about how can I actually have a business? If you're at the point where you do have a team, then we need to figure out like exactly how like what is the model that you're going to use that team to make more money. So I think a lot of people will just view like hiring a team as an expense instead of hiring a team and viewing that person as a person who's going to go out and generate profit.
Right.
And a lot of times that will be driven by either pricing is incorrect. I'm just kind of spitballing here. Pricing
Yeah.
is incorrect. You might be overpaying the team member for the work they're doing. A lot of entrepreneurs maybe don't have good management skills. And so the team member maybe needs more training or needs more management to be more efficient with their time. Like there's a lot of different levers, but with a service type business, it
Mm-hmm.
usually comes down to your pricing and the offer structure, which maybe is just commissions, right? For you guys in the travel business.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people do it differently, but like thinking about, okay, for this project, I use this term because it's like, I know it's not a project for this trip or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you're booking, right? For this trip, my total potential commission is $2,000. And
Mm-hmm.
so out of that, like thinking about, okay, I need to be able to take that $2,000 and pay the team member to do the work, to put it all together, to coordinate with the clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then still have enough money left over to pay my business expenses, to put money in my pocket, to cover my taxes. So there's a lot that goes into it. I wish I could like simplify it down in like 20 minutes, but
Mm-hmm.
I think just being more strategic about how will you use the team member? How will you use the resources you have in your business to make more money?
Yeah, and I love that you had mentioned that it's not an expense that's coming out, it's a tool to make you more money. Now, I know sometimes in the travel industry, I feel like people hire too quickly. Do you find that like with other industries as well, or do you think that even exists, people hiring too quickly?
I definitely think hiring too quickly exists. I think it could either be hiring, maybe hiring too quickly isn't what I would say. I think people either hire the wrong role
Oh,
or they hire the wrong person because they're
okay.
not clear on exactly who they should be hiring and how much time they need to be hiring them for.
Okay.
Either, I think a lot of times, especially people who are just hiring the first person, will think that they're going to go out and get the unicorn, like the jack of all trades that can help them with every aspect of their business.
Right.
And I want you to understand unicorns are entrepreneurs, right? Like we can do all the things because we just can. That's our skill set. But
Mhm.
an average person, maybe not average is the wrong word, but a non-entrepreneurial person is not likely to be the unicorn that can hop from thing to thing all day long and stay efficient.
Mhm.
So I think being super clear on exactly who you're hiring. And the second piece is when you hire them, if you're hiring them to make more money, that means you have to make more sales. And so, do you have the right sales and marketing and pricing and all of that stuff on the front end to be able to fill your pipeline with the increase in your expenses? And a lot of people don't do that because they don't know how to think about like the strategy of growing their business that way.
Mhm. Yeah. I also love that you brought up the whole pipeline because everything leads to sales, or at least it should be if you're trying to have a profitable business. So when we're talking about that, part of it is reviewing your expenses to see like, are they necessary? Are you still using them? Are they still relevant? But there's this big wave, and I'm like in the background going like, yes, because it's so resonating that it's not always about cutting expenses, but how can you generate more revenue? Because I think like that used to be almost like the old way of thinking, and the modern way of thinking is like it's not really about cutting. Like if you still want to have certain luxuries in life, what can you do to make sure you get to keep those or have more of them? So can
Yeah.
you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. I would say that line of thinking is a more traditional way of thinking where it's like, and it's really targeted at employees where if you have a fixed income, like your income
Mm-hmm.
is here because that's what your salary is, that's
Mm-hmm.
what you're making. And so the only way to save more, if you have this pie, the only way to save more is to spend less. But as entrepreneurs, you don't have a fixed income. You can make as much money as you can go out and sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think the fastest path to making more profits and then having more money available to build wealth is to go sell more. And I don't say like be irresponsible with your money. I
Right.
think you do need to understand like what are you spending on in your business? Do you really need this? I just went through this month and cut out like $2,000 a month of stuff because I was just like,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not using this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have a team of 9 to be clear. Like we have a big expense budget, so not everybody's going to find like $2,000, but you know, I think it's one thing just to make sure you're being responsible with your money and not spending on things you don't need. But I also very strongly believe that you can prioritize spending on things that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then so for me, for example, I spend a lot of money on health stuff because that's important to me. So in my personal life, I just have not just, I've about 3 months ago hired a personal trainer. I get meal prep food for lunch every day. I
Yeah.
do a few other things. It's been great. It's been instrumental to me actually like being healthier.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and I have a high grocery budget because like I don't buy cheap food. It's just
Right.
not one of my values. But at the same time, I drive a 2007 Honda Accord
Mm-hmm.
and I have over $1 million net worth. I drive a 2007 Honda Accord. I just don't care about the car. Right.
Yeah.
So I think applying that lens of like, what are the things that really matter and not feeling guilty about spending there, but then also not feeling like you have to keep up with the Joneses in every other area of your business and in your life.
Right. That and I love that because I'm also a big health and wellness. I have an autoimmune disease And trying to slowly get back on track with that is like critically important. That's like one of the big reasons. And so like I'll factor that into like when I calculate something that I call like the yearly income goal. That's part of it. Like I want to be able to see the best doctors, get some of the best testing, diagnostic testing, functional testing, to be able to see like the best pathway forward.
Yeah.
So like just thinking about wealth building too, where are some of the go-tos to kind of like even start looking at within your business and the areas in your business that can generate wealth?
Yeah. I think the first thing people misunderstand about wealth is actually what it is. So like, what is wealth is a question. It's one of those terms like wealth and legacy get used all the time in marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
yet like people don't know what it is. So wealth, I would say, has two definitions. One, it is the stuff that you own. So the assets that you own. Traditionally, when we think about like somebody's net worth, that is the total assets they own minus what they owe. So any debt that you owe, like the value of your house minus the mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy example. Um, and so understanding that it's really about like, I know a house isn't money in the bank, but it's kind of like the money that you have in the bank
Mm-hmm.
that ultimately you can go and use in the future for retirement or just general financial independence, even if you don't want to wait until you retire. That's me. I would also say that wealth goes back into that time freedom example too, because if I have tons
Right.
of money in the bank, but I don't have the time freedom to take care of my health, to spend time with my 3-year-old, like what's it for? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the many reasons I left my corporate job. So I think wealth is also the ability to have those options. But I will say, I think money, in a lot of times, having the income that supports you funds the time freedom. Because if you don't have a high income, if you don't have enough income, I wouldn't say it necessarily has to be high. It depends on your life. But if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have enough income, then you're not going to have time freedom because you're going to have to work. Right. So
Right.
it's all intertwined. So
Right.
understanding what wealth is as a business owner, I think there's two ways that your business generates wealth. One is the value of your business. So my husband and I actually about a month and a half ago just bought a business.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid that business owner hundreds of thousands of dollars for their business.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a way to create wealth because he built a business that has a value. So generally, the higher the profits you have in your business, the higher the value of your business. You also need team and systems and branding and all the stuff. Like the better all that is, the higher the value, but I won't go into it. So that's one way is your business has value. So if you think, hey, maybe I'll sell my travel business one day to a bigger travel agency, maybe they
Yeah.
want to get your client list. Like that is a legit thing. People can walk away with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars when they sell their business. So that's one. Two is taking the cash flow or the profitability that your business generates. So profitability, meaning sales minus all your business expenses, taking that profit and investing it into other assets. And so other assets would be the basic stuff. Think like retirement accounts,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you have enough money in savings, obviously. A lot of my clients are really interested in real estate. I just had one buy a food truck a couple months ago.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I know it's kind of cool. But taking the profits that your business generates and putting that into other assets that
Mm-hmm.
will in turn continue making more money. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the two ways that I would say your business generates wealth.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much a mindset shift. At least I think it was for me. And like where you think that this is what a business is, and then the switch flips on like, oh, this is what the business can actually do. And it can check and tick off a lot of boxes in the future. And I also say this from a place of I did great. I had profit last year in my business and then also not managing that that well. And so there were a lot of things that I was looking at this year to be like, okay, we got to get like on a and put ourselves in a better position. And some of those things were like investing, Roth IRA and all those different things that can start decreasing tax liability. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but pretty much like decreasing what you owe, but also increasing what you're talking about, which are those assets.
Yeah. I think, yes, from a tax perspective, like it can definitely help if you're making investments. You can get tax benefits in a lot of cases in one way or the other, which is always great. I always say, like, never do something just for the tax benefit, because ultimately, like, we care more about big picture. Are you making enough money? Are you managing your money well? Are you going to have enough in assets to be able to retire one day? Like, those are first and foremost, but taxes are obviously like a big chunk of that if you don't manage them the right way.
Right, right. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do in the sense of what exactly does it mean to hire a virtual CFO, Chief Financial Officer? And like, how does somebody know if they're ready to work with somebody like that? Like they're profitable, they have a small team. Like, what are some of the indicators that they would know that I need to start talking to a professional because I want to increase the assets of my business or increase the profitability or the personal professional wealth?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. There's not like a hard and fast rule. I
Mm-hmm.
think for when it comes to finance in your business, you've got what I would call compliance work, which is like the check the box, get your bookkeeping done, get your tax return prepared. I think everybody probably needs some level of support over there.
Mm-hmm.
What we focus more on is the strategic work. That's the forward looking. So the compliance work
Mm-hmm.
is looking backwards at what happened. Let's just make sure we report it the right way for tax purposes,
Mm-hmm.
versus the strategic and planning work is looking ahead at what are my goals for my personal life? Like, what is this money for? Going back to that
Okay.
question. Um, that's part of why I want to bring in the personal financial planning. I think I'm going to go take the test and just see if I can pass it. I think I
Do
can do
it.
it.
Do
It's been a little studying.
it.
But also just like hire a financial planner too.
Mhm.
Because frankly, I don't have time to be doing that. Anyways, anyways. But that's why I want to have that, is so we can also like dig more into the personal side, because that's where the goals come from, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's your money for? It's to make money on the personal side of your life, most likely,
Mhm.
in some fashion. And so it's really strategic. And so at what point do you need to hire people? My firm, I would say, is different from a lot of CFO practices in that everything that we do is fully in-house. So all of our clients get tax work, because for my
Mhm.
CFO clients, there's a lot of CFOs out there who don't do taxes. They just do the budgeting, forecasting, advisory stuff, which is
Mhm.
fine. For me, taxes is such a big line item. It hits cash flow so hard sometimes. I don't know how I can do my job without having my arms around the taxes. And I just want my team to do it because they're
Mhm.
better than everybody else, to be frank. So that's how we're a little bit different there. And so I would say for people who are making, I don't know, at least 50 to 100K in profits per year, it's
Mhm.
time to really think about tax planning and tax strategy, because you're going to have a bigger tax bill. And I think when your business, and that level of profitability can happen at different revenue levels for different people, just depending on how they manage their business, right?
Mhm. Right.
Obviously, we want it to happen sooner, but like, I've seen clients who make multiple millions and still have 50K of profits. Like, anyways, I won't go down that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
I think when you get into, multi six figure land, it's definitely time to get more than basic check the box bookkeeping.
Okay.
And then, I think for clients in that like low six figure range, it could be helpful to have like maybe a one time sort of consult. I don't know that I personally find that clients in that range need ongoing full CFO support, but
Mhm.
having like maybe, sometimes we'll do like a project, a VIP day or something like that to really dig in
Mhm.
and say, how could you improve your profitability? And then you go do it, right? And then come check back in.
Mhm.
And so for our full like virtual CFO work, most of those clients are multi-seven, low eight-figure businesses, because at that point, they have so much volume of cash in and out of the business that they really need to fully outsource their whole
Oh,
finance
yeah.
team.
I can imagine that. I know it's interesting because like it's usually the larger scale, either host agencies, and host agencies are kind of like real estate brokerages that have all the independent contractors under them. Because that's a big chunk of the travel industry is filled with independent contractors who work with host agencies. And it kind of like circles back to what you had mentioned in the beginning, specifically with women, that a lot of people aren't necessarily quote unquote the breadwinner. And so they're not thinking about the business driving results like that per se. So for someone who, I guess, the livelihood doesn't necessarily depend on what their income is, but their income can like afford different other things. Like maybe their income is for all the fun stuff, or maybe it's for house renovations, or maybe it's what you were mentioning, like setting up Roth IRA for kids or grandkids or somebody along the family. So can you speak a little bit to that also, if people aren't in that, they're in that mindset of making multiple 6, 7 figures?
Yeah. Well, my first question would be, why can't you? Right?
Love that.
Why can't you? Um, and maybe I think so. I have, like I said, I have my own coaching and like teaching, mentoring businesses. I have group programs. And what
Mm-hmm.
I hear, one of them is specifically about scaling. So offers team systems that you need to
Yeah.
scale your business to multi 6 figures beyond. A lot of people I talk to are like, well, it just seems like it's going to be so much harder to run at that level. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say that's BS, because I personally have a 7-figure agency and I work in it 10 to 15 hours a week because I
Mm-hmm.
have done the work to make it easier. So making more money doesn't have to be hard. That's a mindset shift that needs to be made. And
I
like,
love
yes, I'm
that.
not saying it's easy,
Right.
right? Like I'm not saying like it's hard work. It's scary. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work and not necessarily time. It doesn't have to take a ton of time, but it doesn't have to be hard. So that's question one, is why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't you? We think about expansion day. If you're like, well, that's just not, maybe that's like not in my short-term game plan, totally fine. I go back to, what is the money for? To answer that question and to get clear on, maybe your goals are to, I think I was going to say like help out your kids, help yourself before you help your kids is another one of my
Love that.
things. Like I've just seen too many women who rely on their partner's income and their partner's retirement accounts. Like, and then you get divorced and you don't ever, I'm not sitting here today thinking I'm going to divorce my husband in 10 years. Most of
Mm-hmm.
us aren't. I know some of you are, but like most of us aren't planning that, right?
Right.
But you also just don't know what could happen. And if
Mm-hmm.
you are, let's say you're 50, you get divorced, all of the assets are in your spouse's name or your partner's name. What are you
Yep.
going to do? You're either going to have to hire a really expensive divorce attorney to get part of that, or hope you have an amicable divorce and they give you some of it. So, like, women need to be taken care of. A lot of my clients coming in will prioritize their kids' 529s before their own retirement. So they pay for kids'
Mm-hmm.
529s, kids' activities, all of that stuff before taking care of themselves. And my response to that is, we can do both, right? You can do some minimal investing, like start with the IRAs. Those are the easiest things.
Okay.
If you qualified. And then, maybe at the same time, think about, well, what are the ways that I want to be able to upgrade my life? Like I talked about, I wanted to invest in a personal trainer. It's not
Mm-hmm.
cheap, but that was a priority for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't travel much, but when we travel, like we're upgrading our seats, we're staying in the nice house. Like I'm not traveling cheap anymore. And so
Right.
identifying those things that are important, and that's what your money's for.
Yeah. I love that. And also, do you cut back on anything because you've added these new expenses?
You mean personally or in your business?
Oh, either or.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to decide, right? Like this is my personal thing. Like, I'm not going to go out and take all of my income that I make and do the health stuff and travel all the time and buy a ton of clothes and skincare and go out to eat all the time and have a really fancy car and like all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people do that, but I want to take my income and allocate money to the things that I care about and then be
Mm-hmm.
able to save and invest the rest because I care more about long-term financial independence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reality is like we talked about before, if you want to save or spend more money without having to cut back on something else,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to make more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it is math, right? Like
Right.
you have income you're making in your business and you either have to earn more,
Right.
you have to spend less in other areas to be able to save.
Yep. Yeah, I just could learn and like gab with you for so much longer because a part of me is also like, finally, like, why more people need to be talking about this kind of stuff and this expertise in this area. And that long-term planning is so much more than what you've mentioned, just like cutting expenses. It's also your why, which is incredibly important, why you do the things you do and why do you want the certain things in life, so that you don't have to second guess and question like, oh, is this the right thing? Should I be doing this or not? So I cannot thank you enough, like, for starting this conversation, at least within the travel industry, and being here today, Sarah.
Well, thanks for having me. And I know more people should talk about it, but I'm talking about it. So come listen to my
Yes.
podcast. Come follow
Yes.
me on Instagram. I promise you, I talk about it every single day.
Yeah. And where can they go ahead and do that? What's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yep. So go check out my podcast. It is the Profit and Prosper podcast. You can find all of the episodes on Apple, on Spotify, also at profitandprosper.co. I'm sure you'll have the link in there. And then
Oh,
my
yeah.
personal Instagram it's Sarah Young. So that's where I spend a lot of time there posting content. And then you can also get on my email list. There's a link for that in my Instagram. So you can get on my email list, and I send even more good stuff out in my Millionaire Mondays email newsletters.
Love it. Millionaire Mondays. It's bringing just a whole new perspective on what your business can really do for you. And instead of like you working for your business working for your lifestyle and all the things that you dream of and want and also need, deserve, and all the things.
Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah. All right, travel biz owners. Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode interview of Prep for Wave Week. We've got 2 more sessions for Expansion Day, and we'll see you in the other ones. Bye for now.